Now, what is Bitcoin? Everyone knows what Bitcoin is, except this is something I keep seeing everyone get wrong. Bitcoin is not a social network. It is not a solution to all the world's ills. Bitcoin doesn't cure cancer. I'm sorry. As much as people want Bitcoin and blockchain to be everything for everyone, not every single technology is. It is stable money, hard money. It is a form of money at its best that stops demurrage. Demurrage is one of the biggest problems in human society. It brought about part of the collapse of the Roman Empire. The whole idea of a government being able to print more money, to make more, to create more, steals from everyone. Here in the UK, we had the most stable government for 300 years of the world. This is the thing that really made finance and everything work, allowing this little tiny island to take over, well, a third of the world. Why? Because people could trust the money. People were actually, and still do, form contracts here in Britain that have nothing to do with Britain and Wales and Scotland or anywhere else. They don't care. People would come to UK courts because they could trust UK courts to do what they said. That was the past. And then everyone decided to try socialism and let's see what we can do by changing everything. So what is Bitcoin? Bitcoin is peer-to-peer. That does not mean that everyone needs to run a node. You and I exchange money. That's what peer means. Peer is very simple. I have a transaction, you have goods, we exchange. Right now, when you're out there in the world and you're going there to buy something, you want to buy a coffee, do you care where the money flows? Not really. You want to exchange, you want to get your coffee, you want to walk out. The end. You don't want to come out there like some of these people are saying at the moment and bring out your laptop, make sure it syncs with the network. Still waiting. Okay, we're starting to download. We'll just go off and just skip forward 30 minutes. And then we're ready, let's order our coffee. Beauty! Yes, my transaction went through. Welcome to the world of Bitcoin Core. And if it scales, I get to pay hundreds of dollars for the privilege of knowing my coffee purchase is secure. Here's another thing to think about. As a user, do you care? Think about this for a moment. Everyone keeps going, you need to validate your transactions. Do you trust yourself? Anyone here does not trust themselves. Do you think you're stealing from yourself? No one with split personality disorder? No? No? Okay, well, that's the issue that they're trying to say you need to protect yourself from. Because you could be sitting there on your laptop and maybe your right hand's doing one thing and your left hand's typing something else, and you have to validate that transaction because, after all, you don't know, maybe there's another version of you has just ordered something else before you got your coffee. So if you don't validate that transaction, maybe your doppelganger has got in there first, and I'm sorry, your coffee is no longer valid, and you have double spent the merchant. Is that your problem? Do you care? Not really. The merchant does. The merchant's going to validate. That's a different thing. But that's not the matter people are talking about. The merchant is a business. They can either go to another business who provides that service, or they can run it themselves. I don't really care how they do it. The fact of the matter is, a merchant is a business. Home users don't need to go through some verification process where they ensure that their digital doppelganger or whatever else hasn't in their own mind. I don't know, and my wife was a psychologist. How many multiple personalities did that silly woman have? 17? Yeah, 17. Well, maybe if you have 17 personalities, you need to run a node because, well, one of your other personalities might get in there and order coffee first. But for the rest of us, Bitcoin is money, and that's an important thing. So Bitcoin is a cryptocurrency. So let's go over this. There's this little thing called a white paper. I know that seems to be something that means ICOs these days, but the whole point of a Bitcoin white paper originally was no one in their right mind would publish the Bitcoin white paper, even if they wanted to. I don't think there was a single journal or conference paper that would have taken it and not laughed. So we have this white paper out there, not as an ICO raising fund thing, but because Bitcoin's cash. And everyone 10 years ago knew, and I mean knew, categorically knew, you cannot do digital eCash. It had been tried. It's failed. If you think about eCash and Brands eCash or CHL or any of these other ones, going back to the 90s and CHL was at about 2003, it was no way it would work. Forget it, because cash can't work because it needs a central authority, and as soon as you get a central authority, government owns it. Not that they own slightly, they can take over everything. And that is a problem because none of us happen to be a government. Even if you work for a government, you are not a government. And I don't know about anyone, I don't see anyone who happens to be a prime minister or president in the room. So I'm assuming that none of you happen to run a country, in which case you could probably just do this anyway, and I'm wrong. But for most of us here, there's just no hope that you get to actually have anything to do with starting anything like a currency without getting in lots of trouble. And besides, all the academics knew it's wrong. Bitcoin was a total failure right from the beginning because it's not secure. Everyone will tell you that because cryptographically, it's a piece of shit. There's no other way to put it. It's completely secured by economics. You have to trust all these nasty capitalists to actually want money. I mean, that's the whole premise of Bitcoin. It's on economic security. And you have to trust that people want money. And none of us want that, do we? No. No, we're all here basically because we want to give our time and lives to the world. I don't know why. Even Gandhi really had a second life. I'll pick on him too. But it's cash. But it's more. Jimmy talked about some of these things. And what is it again? We've got the old symbol there. It's not just money. It is the foundation for everything we can see. Everyone loves to run round saying how the internet was this wonderful altruistic vision. I was there. I worked for an ISP in the early 90s before I joined the stock exchange. I can tell you the shit show of an idea of this being the DARPANET and whatever else, it was altruistic. That was the 80s. It didn't work. The internet took off when it became commercial. The day it opened up commercially, it took off. In fact, it started before then, not because people wanted to be altruistic, but because there are a few people who saw that this was something big, potentially. And there were companies who invested a lot of money building interconnections and networks between lots of different groups, including universities and companies and all the rest, knowing that if they lobbied government, eventually someone would go, yes, you can charge money. And one of the companies I worked for back in the past did just that in Australia. And others I was involved with did that in America. So all this altruistic investing in the network people were doing, it wasn't that altruistic. We were actually there knowing that we invest that money because we get more back. That's what capitalism is. It's about building stuff, building shit people want. It's very simple. You don't go somewhere and, well, look around a store and go, nah, I don't like this stuff, and think that that is what really builds the world. The world is built on things that people want. Right back from old Adam Smith there, with the goodness of the bakers and the butchers and all these other silly people who didn't do it out of their own goodness. They did it because they've got families, they've got mortgages, they've got kids in private school, and they want to put them through. Bitcoin is that. So what is it? We have performance influences. So we have a macroeconomic aspect of Bitcoin. We have the aspect of global commerce. Now, the biggest boom that happened in the world happened not this century or last, but the one before. Most people don't realise, when they talk about the growth globally in the 19th century, they look at the little bus. The average depression in the 19th century that people complained about was 6 months. And they made global news about that we right now go on, oh, it was so terrible back then. That's because no one had ever heard of a 10-year depression. No one had this idea that government would keep pumping money into stupid ideas like digging holes and filling them up again, which was actually a proposal by Keynes. You dig holes, you put money in bottles, you bury them, and let people randomly find them, because that will keep everyone employed. Yay! That sounds productive, doesn't it? Not really. Goods and services, savings. People saved back then. That's really what makes an economy work. We are richer today because we have more capital goods today. We have more investment today. We have all this other stuff. It's not just we have cool technology. We have cool technology because people invested. We have all of this in a global environment, and Bitcoin isn't digital gold because where people have this mismatch of an idea of what digital gold is, digital gold was the backing for a stable money. The whole idea of sterling, the whole idea of before money with Brian Jennings and whatever else in the US and the free silver movement was money that was hard. People wanted fiat because there were people who wanted to get out of their debts. That might seem easy, but if you've got a mortgage at the huge then, which they actually did complain, and if you listen, if you read anything from the 1880s, people actually sent documents in letters, thousands of them, into government, complaining about the interest rates, calling to the president to do something about them. Do you know what the interest rates were at that stage? Anyone?
2%.
You got it. In one. How many of us here have a 2% home loan? No. That was actually what people were complaining about. That was, the world is terrible. We need to get out of the debt we owe. We have to pay an extra 2% every year. You can't imagine that anymore, can you? No. So we have perception. It's changed now because no one reads old books, apart from wacky sort of idiots like me who keep going over this stuff. We have this idea of what money is because we've been force-fed things in schools. We have industry and regulation. That's the last bit of this. We have a market position and everyone wants to get that, but why? So, why is stability? Like, we've got some guys who are developing in the room who've come over to visit us, and none of the things that they're doing is instant. They like to say how it's good and they're building things and it's easy, which is great. I love to hear that. Next time we negotiate price, we'll make sure we remember that.
Give us more.
We will. But if you want to actually build a stable business, you need a stable platform. You don't want to invest in a 5-year program and have someone 6 months later arguing, well, maybe we shouldn't increase block size. Maybe not. Maybe we should add and change the protocol. If you're going to actually go through that, are you going to invest in a long-term project? No, probably not. No one seems to realise how long business actually goes through many projects. One thing I like to point out is where we came from in Australia. Commonwealth Bank had a project where they had a core banking upgrade. It took them over 5 years and cost $4.5 billion to put in a new software platform. And we run around in the crypto and Bitcoin world and say, we're big. A little Australian bank spent $4.5 billion putting in a new piece of software. Not their entire banking asset base, their software. So if we don't actually do something where we have a fixed, stable economy, we're not going to have certainty. Without certainty, we don't get investment. And I'm not talking, oh, we need to con some pension fund into putting their money in Bitcoin, because that's not going to ever happen. Because contrary to what people think, VAR and capital controls and Basel III compliance requirements apply to all these organisations. Anyone know what VAR is? So you've got things like value at risk calculations, and they come from volatility. Last time I checked, crypto is volatile. So until we get to a world economy where everyone's using this on a day-to-day basis and not speculating and gambling with it, this whole idea of people are going to swoop in and buy massive amounts of Bitcoin is a pipe dream. They will do that if and when, and I mean if and when, it becomes a global money. Full stop. Because then it's not volatile. Right now, it's going to fluctuate to buggery. So we're not going to make Bitcoin a global something by sitting there and waiting and hoping that an insurance company or a pension fund invests in us. We're going to do it by having people use it. So the things Jimmy talked about, where we actually put contracts on the blockchain, because, well, they're not spam, where we actually use it as an immutable ledger, because, again, it's not spam, and when we actually go through all of these things, knowing that we're going to actually have a contract valid for the life term of the contract. So if you have a car loan, it is no good if your 5-year car loan doesn't have an immutable blockchain that doesn't change for 5 years. Is it now? Think about it. If you write a smart contract and you know that Core is going to change the protocol in 6 months, why on earth would any bank do that? Think about it. If you've got a 5-year car loan, anyone know what the retention period under British law is for your car loan? No? So if you take a lease, for instance, after the loan has finished, How long does the organisation need to keep all the documents without error?
20 years? 6 years.
20 years. So on your 5-year car loan, you have a legal requirement under Bail 3 legislation and all the rest now. As a bank executive, you are criminally liable for losing that. So when we're going out to these guys and going, hey, use Bitcoin because it's got smart contracts. And then we're sitting there going, yeah, but we're just going to change the protocol in 6 months, and then in 6 months, and then in 6 months, and within 20 years we'll stop doing this. What person who's an executive at a bank would actually consider this and not laugh? This is why they actually do stupid ideas like private blockchains. That's why it makes sense, because they know they're not going to change the damn thing. So when you have a 25-year legislative, basically, I'm going to jail if I don't do this requirement for a banker, it's no good going, it's permissionless, you don't need to worry. The guy over there who goes to jail doesn't give a rat's whether it's permissionless or not. It's that simple. So, little quote from 2009. We don't want to keep changing. That's what we're going to do with SV. We don't need to change. We don't need to add more trash. We don't need to add pay-to-script hash or any other social convention, whatever else thing. The reason people actually sit there saying Bitcoin is broken is because they don't want what Bitcoin is. These developers working on it think they can make it into something else. Well, go off and invent something else. Bitcoin is not a social network. It does not solve social consensus. It does not make nice people. It does not make people like me lovable. I'm sorry. I don't give a rat's rectum whether you like it or not. I don't become lovable because I've been next to a blockchain. I invent shit, I do shit, I work hard. Bitcoin is that. It is proof of work. Not proof of niceness, not proof of social, not proof of anything else. So, we've got guys over here, and we're actually doing this stuff, and everyone goes, yeah, but we haven't seen it yet. This is the point. To do things right takes time. So we are developing all these things. Not so that you can go out there and make new sort of securitized assets without following regulations. I want to do it so that you can follow regulations. I don't want to tell you to be an anarchist. I want you to say that you can make a home mortgage that is registered and cheaper. I want you to say that when banks securitize your assets, you have a full record of everything that's been done. So in the 2007 and 2008 crash, the problem was securitization. You know, what we're doing now, they did back then. Now we call it ICOs. Back then, they called it shadow banking. It's the same thing. So now that we've regulated shadow banking, people are trying to move shadow banking onto crypto. And they're trying to say that all these things that crashed the economy a decade ago, we should allow now because we've got a blockchain. It's permissionless. We can raise assets without any attribution. Anyone know why the housing market really crashed? Why CDOs were a problem? Anyone want to put up a hand? No?
Too many houses?
Well, that's part of it, yeah. Why did we get too many houses? Everything in this world is economic. I don't care whether you think so or not. Everything. Life is economic. Biology is economic. The difference of calories, the difference of reproduction is economic. And we have a problem where people have incentives to make more houses and pump them because the ratings didn't track to the original house. No one knew what they were buying. Toxic assets were re-rated because people were actually sold on the idea that they could make money and get out before it collapsed. Sound like an ICO problem that we're building now? We don't want that. We want real assets really pegged down, the exact opposite of what everyone's saying. Not permissionless. I have a real asset that I want to sell. I can securize it and I can sell it in parts. A real asset that I can go and visit, that I can look at a picture of your house, that I can send someone out to investigate. That's what we get. So we want a method where we can allow everyone to do that. So unfortunately, that's going to take time because these guys are damn good, and I'll say that, and they'll use that as the opposite for what I've just said for when we negotiate. And they will do the same problem I have, which is they do shit UIs, but they do good back-end stuff, which is my problem. And they're laughing, but it's true, and no one's denying it. And that's what other people have thought. So we're going to make all the back-end things and the SDKs, and we'll allow other people to build all of this because it's just too big for us. I don't really care. I mean, I don't want to be Google. We have enough headaches now, and I already have an organisation where I don't know half of that seems to just happen because people like Jimmy and everything like that keep me in order. But if we actually allow people to know what the hell they've really got, that matters. So we can swap all these things. So we've got a complex scripting language. It's based on Forth. There are some nice little chips. The 8051 microcontroller chip allowed us to do all sorts of things back in the 80s and 90s. Not that anyone does that anymore, but we can create lots of stuff with these little bits of code. We can create real shares and real common stock, equities. I'm not talking the idea of the ICO, oh, it's not really a share, it's sort of a utility where you don't get anything, but I don't give you your money back because, well, I like sitting in my pajamas stock. It's things with dividends, where if your money is invested, you get some back. You know, not a Ponzi where I chuck it in there and like 98% of the already failed ICOs, nothing happens. It has voting rights. This is a big thing because I don't think I've actually seen a full voting right with any ICO yet, because that would make them a security. Well, actually they are securities, but they like to ignore that. And we could even have a company constitution, you know, not a white paper ICO thing, but a set in stone, this is what we do. If the directors violate it, they're in trouble. We can hold them to account. You know, we don't have a nebulous company that we trust, well, a nebulous company. That's not what Bitcoin and trustless means. Trustless means we don't need to worry about being screwed over. It doesn't mean that we sit there and act stupidly and throw our money into something hoping we get something back when we never do. That's what they want. They want us to believe that because there are lots of people right out there right now raising much money. Earlier this year I had a bit of fun with a guy from Token 2049 because he sat there on the stage and he said, with ICOs, I've managed to do what I've never been able to do ever before. I raised money for a company. I raised $50 million. I raised this because I had an idea I thought would be great, It didn't work. But now I have the money for when I think of a really good idea. And that was his pitch. Literally. He didn't give the money back to anyone. It's, yeah, I tried, but nah. Oh, no, you guys don't get a share of the new thing. Don't be stupid. That's what ICOs have become. That's not trust. We want real automation in companies. Bitcoin's about efficiency because productivity matters. We're in this place here that is overlooking what 200 years ago people would think was impossible. People would imagine, not even in sci-fi, people would not even think could ever occur. All of this, electric lights, air conditioning, magic box that puts things on the wall, all of this happens because we have more efficiency. We have productivity and we have the development of capital that we save. Not we burn, not this idea of the broken window fallacy where I throw a brick through a wall and then go, oh, but the glazier, he'll make more money, forgetting that I would have spent money on something else. Registration. We don't want all these bullshit tokens. We want utility tokens that actually give you utility. I want to be able to go to an Odeon or whatever else and hand in my token because I want to sit on a seat. How many people here who've raised, anyone been involved with an ICO? Yes, no? Yep. Have you actually gotten something from that ICO? No, not coins. Did you get something?
We've got a product, still not completely yet, 5 years in, on the same place, 2014 to 19.
Okay, so you've used it as a capital raising means. Capital raising. That's what that means. So what I'm hearing is no one's actually ever physically got something from a utility token. Utility token is not new. Anyone know when the first digital token actually came into existence? Yeah. All back at, EDI. So early days of EDI, we have the first digital token. And the digital signature was a string of numbers and it wasn't even cryptographic. Strangely enough, no one hacked it for I think 19 years before the first time someone hacked that because no one even thought to, amazingly enough. And actually at one stage there was something like $1 trillion a year going through unsecured EDFACT, but oh well. So company governance, we want records, we want all this actually online. We want bonds and capital raising. So the stuff you're talking about, but done properly. Not as a promise, but as a real bond. One that you can trust, one that you can be proud of. That's what we want. We want capital raising with tracking, choice of funds, interest and automated ratings, where real investment companies will put money into you. Not anything like people are talking about now, because what we're talking about is small. Even when we're talking about raising money in ICOs, we're flipping coins for coins and whatever else. And no one can get out with $10 billion. I can't get out with a $10 billion sale. If I did so, before I even tried to get out, there wouldn't be any price in any coin. No one can. That's the whole point. But yet, there are companies that are worth $900 billion out there. And they can sell a shitload of shares, and their companies are worth $900 billion. There's Apple, which is actually listed, and there are others that no one talks about because they're private. Well, they're actually still companies. The fact that they don't list on a stock exchange is because they don't want to go through all the problems like we don't. So, Internet of Things. We want a control system. We want a secure, distributed, log records, all the rest. And I'm going to tell you, in the next couple decades, every single place you get a little bit of power is going to have a chip. That's going to be IoT. Those light bulbs are IoT. It's not just so you can do silly things like I do to my children, where you have remote controls and turn their lights different colours and make them flash at night until I get in trouble and ban, thank you honey, or make their toilets go green and glowing. All those sort of fun things that Internet of Things allows you to do. They actually have serious uses too, like tracking your car. And if you lose your keys, which we managed to do, well, I managed to do the other day, luckily we found them, then your phone could actually let you back in your car if someone put the app on her phone. We could have secure and distributed. What is secure? It's just very simple. No one else knows about you in a blockchain world. So, opportunity, new businesses, all these things Jimmy talked about before are new. You don't need to invent the blockchain again, not an altcoin. We need to make something that is an early, enduring promise that lasts. So, Bitcoin is it. It is the future, it was the future, and it is what will be. So, I'm going to tell you it can't be stopped, not for the reason people say, but because it's a better technology. And we're going to stick it right where it is, stop experimenting, and allow business to grow. Thank you.